I think that if you become a reader of Plato, if you become a person who becomes interested in Plato, and there will always be such persons, how you finally come to terms with this character Thrasymachus and his claim about justice is one of the most important things that you'll do as a reader of Plato, someone who thinks about Plato. It sometimes seems in the Platonic dialogues that the people with whom Socrates is speaking, they really can't match him. I mean, some of them aren't very bright, like Meno. Some of them are very bright, but seem to always agree with him. And he's rarely challenged, I would say, my reading of the Platonic dialogues. But whether Thrasymachus is very bright or not, this thing that he says about justice is, I believe, a profound challenge. And that's when he says here, um, bottom of page 12, that justice is nothing else than the interest of the stronger. Um, that turns out to be, I think, yes, a profound challenge, not only, well, a profound challenge to Socrates' whole way of thinking and his whole life, the way that he's chosen to live his life. Thrasymachus, in those few words, implies an entirely different outlook on life. And as I said, a great challenge to the Socratic outlook on life and how you should live. This is book one of the Republic. The Republic is 10 books, which is basically chapters. It's a long dialogue. And I would say that the vast majority of it, in one way or another, is meant to serve as part of an argument, a grand argument against this thesis of Thrasymachus, which Socrates, I am willing to believe, is genuinely puzzled by. It should say here, after he says that justice is nothing else in the interest of the stronger, and now why do you not refute me? Sorry, internet text. Why do you not refute me? But of course you won't. And Socrates says, let me first understand you. See, I think he genuinely doesn't know what Thrasymachus is talking about. And after questioning him about it, Thrasymachus tries to, a couple times, explain. What does he mean? Well, he talks about the different forms of government. Socrates, you know that there are different forms of government: democratical, aristocratical, tyrannical. Democratical would be democratic government where the people rule. Aristocratical would be an aristocratic government where the nobility rules. And tyrannical would be a tyranny in which one person rules, one man, basically. Well, let's read what he says. And the different forms of government make laws: democratical, aristocratical, tyrannical, with a view to their several interests. And these laws, which are made by them for their own interests, are the justice which they deliver to their subjects. And him who transgresses them they punish as a breaker of the law and unjust. This is what I mean when I say that in all states there is the same principle of justice, which is the interest of the government. And as the government must be supposed to have power, the only reasonable conclusion is that everywhere there is one principle of justice, which is the interest of the stronger. What emerges here is a profoundly cynical view of justice, and that cynical view may, in fact, be the correct one, but it is cynical insofar as it says that justice is simply what those in power say it is. In governments where the common people are in control, the laws are made in their interest, and that's what they call justice. When the aristocrats are in control, the laws that are made are in their interest, and that in those communities, that's what they call justice, etc. I say this profoundly cynical because it basically says that there's no such thing as justice in the common sense at all. There's no real justice. There's no justice in some sort of impartial sense. There's only the things that human beings call justice, and the people who have the power to define that. what that is in any particular place at any particular time. It's a grand thesis, really, and it is profoundly is a profound challenge to Socrates' views, because as we know from Socrates, he would say that no, justice is something in itself. It's not just a name that people apply to their self-interest. It's a real thing that obliges us all. So he's got to find a way to undermine this. And he has various arguments trying to point out the contradictions, right, in this, and pointing out that there seems to be contradictions insofar as sometimes the strong will be mistaken about what's in their interest, and they will make laws that are actually injurious to themselves. And then justice will not be what's advantageous to the stronger, it'll be what's disadvantageous to the stronger, and so on. I mean, poking holes in the thing. And apparently making Thrasymachus frustrated. And I think finally, when we get to, let's see what page is it on here, I guess the bottom of page 17, we really get, I think, what it is that Thrasymachus is getting at. He's got this very provocative definition of justice, but what does he really mean by it? He gets very offensive with Socrates. Thrasymachus says to Socrates, "Tell me, Socrates, have you got a nurse?" Socrates says, "Why do you ask such a question when you ought rather to be answering?" And Thrasymachus says, because she leaves you to snivel and never wipes your nose. Basically, I think there, it's actually quite important, a very rude thing to say to him, but very important, because he's basically said to Socrates that you're thinking like a child in terms of what justice is. You're not thinking realistically in a grown-up way. You don't know how the world actually works. And he continues and says, "She has not even taught you to know the shepherd from the sheep." "What makes you say that?" I replied. "Because you fancy that the shepherd or nettard, I don't know, fattens or tends the sheep or oxen with a view to their own good and not to the good of himself. And you further imagine that the rulers of states, if they are true rulers, never think of their subjects as sheep, and that they're not studying their own advantage day and night. Oh, no. And so entirely astray are you in your ideas about the just and unjust, as not even to know that justice and the just are in reality another's good. That is, when we do what's just, unless we are the powerful, we're basically doing what's in somebody else's interest, the ruler. Where in reality, we're doing someone else's good, that is to say, the interest of the ruler and the stronger, and the loss of the subject and servant. And injustice is the opposite, for the unjust is lord over the truly simple and just. He is the stronger, and his subjects do what is for his interest. Now he's sort of playing his cards and saying, maybe what he really means is that injustice rules, because there's only power, self-interest. The justice is just a name. It's not anything real, like Plato would say it is. It's just a cover for one's own selfish behavior, what we would call unjust behavior. And what follows is his argument that since this is the way the world is, that the worst thing you can do if you want to get anything in life, if you want to get anywhere and have a chance at some sort of happy life, you should be unjust if you can get away with it. That if you're just, you'll pay all your debts, you'll be honest, you'll never take advantage of any opportunities you have that are morally questionable, you'll pay all your taxes. If you have power, you'll refuse to do your friends corrupt favors, and people will hate you. Whereas if you're unjust, you'll do things cleverly, in your own self-interest without, appearing to be unjust if you're smart. And you'll get what you want because you won't be held back by these moral scruples that Socrates says are so important. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, really. It is the only place in the Platonic dialogues I know where somebody puts up a thesis against Socrates and really challenges him to refute it. Says, "Well, this is what I think." I mean, his thinking might be a little muddled, but if we interpret it generously, it's certainly not a foolish thing to say. That is, that the world works on power, not on justice. People are selfish. They're not concerned with being just. Justice is just a name that the powerful give to their self-interest. So, what is the moral? What is the lesson? Don't be just because you're just playing into somebody else's hands. You're doing someone else's good. Be unjust. Do whatever you need to do for yourself, and that'll give you a chance at living a happy life. We'll see how Socrates in Book One responds to this profound challenge about how you should live your life. But the rest of the book, the rest of the 9 books of the Republic, are devoted to it. And that question is, I would say it's already emerged here in Book One, but the question is, why should I be just? And maybe the real question is, should I be just or should I be unjust? That is, which type of life should I lead? Presumably, I want to be happy and fulfilled. What is the good life? Is that happy, fulfilled, good life a life of justice in which I may, because of my moral scruples, have to deny myself a lot of things, or is the happy, good, fulfilled life a life where we don't worry about those things and we just try to get what we want? I think it's a very, very important and deep question that perhaps we all have thought about ourselves already.